What's up, Call of Duty fans? Alan IHOLDSHIFT on a Frio here with you again. Welcome back. Good to have you, or welcome to the first time, of course. And what you might be looking for from here on out as far as content from this channel. Now, with the CWL regular season starting up in a couple of weeks, we will be doing daily recaps, at least where that's the goal, is to try to do as many daily recaps as possible over the games. But until then, and on the days that we do not have them, I would like to do smaller kind of snippet videos talking about some hot topics. So they'll be a little bit shorter than our normal recap videos, not quite in depth, but giving you just as much information on things that are relevant and current in the scene. Today, I want to focus mostly on what's going on with rosters. Of course, most of you that are familiar with the CWL rule set know that there are roster locks that are currently in effect until just before the Fort Worth event in early March. So what does that mean exactly? A lot of people are kind of freaking out over the whole situation with members from G2, FaZe, Sween, Lightning Pandas, even Mindfreak, and some notable players from the Pittsburgh Knights as well that have been looking for a spot to play. They don't make the Pro League by their own team standards. What can they do from here? Well, unfortunately, as far as being able to just drop people and add people, that is not currently allowed, again, up until just before Fort Worth. So if you want to play in the regular season at this point, you're probably noticing a lot of players out there looking to substitute for teams. Now, I cannot confirm nor deny if there is an actual rule set in the CWL rules that mandates that you have to have a sixth member. So I can't tell you for sure, but a lot of people are talking about how there will be 6 members, a substitute player being added onto most of these rosters. So there are possibly 16 spots still left in the Pro League for some of these players. Of course, there are way more than 16 qualified players that could be picked up as a sub. You also have to keep in mind that there are also things with certain contracts that might not allow players to do this. Again, we got to hit really quickly on the Midnight Esports drama. Of course, most of you saw on Twitter and we're following on the drama where the players were now, that they've made the Pro League, are looking to be possibly represented by a different organization or potentially to make more money or something of that nature. But it all comes down to what the contracts have to say, not what the players necessarily want, even if this is kind of an extraordinary situation considering where they were just a couple months ago. That's not exactly the way it works, depending on how the contracts were set up with Midnight and its players, which is why you're seeing all this drama and why you're seeing Midnight Esports respond a little bit more vocally about how that they're excited to bring their current roster to Columbus. The rumors of a roster being available are completely untrue, as they're still under contract. The organization is currently not accepting inquiries or buyouts of the roster. So there's obviously some kind of a deal here where it was probably something like, hey, play for us under our name, we'll drop you this much money up front, but if you make it, you have to represent us for so long. You know, there's some clauses in there, and the Midnight Esports players are less than happy. But at the moment, Midnight Esports will stay as Midnight Esports with those current 5 players. Okay, that's what you need to know. That's the big takeaway. But I want to talk about the other notable players in the league and what their plans are. Of just after we had the qualifiers end, a lot of teams that didn't qualify got super emotional about it, kind of going onto Twitter and just putting themselves on blast, saying that they were done completely. And I want to touch on some of those players that had noted that, as well as some others that we're not 100% sure on. I want to start with Parasite, because he has been very vocal about it. As soon as his team didn't make it into the bracket league play, he said that he was completely done, was not interested in playing the amateur circuit whatsoever. He then, a couple hours later, would post saying that he was looking for a spot as potentially an analyst or a coach with a team. A couple hours past that, he was saying, you know what, actually, seriously, I really am looking for an analyst or a coach spot. And now it kind of feels like he's coming around to playing more often. I would not be surprised if he's just going to end up playing for the amateur circuit if he does not get offered a coach, analyst, or a sub spot as it goes. And to be honest, it would be a darn shame to see a player like Parasite leave the scene, because honestly, I really do believe he's probably one of the best ARs in the game, at least this one, as it goes. Also, with the Pittsburgh Knights, Ricky had also posted immediately afterwards saying that he was done. Of course, previously being on G2, he got dropped from that roster, picked up by the Pittsburgh Knights. Obviously, things didn't go so well. He then said that, well, no, I'm not done. I'd be interested in a coaching or an analyst spot as well. And recently, we saw a couple of screenshots with Ricky in matches and scrims with Luminosity Gaming. So is he potentially the Luminosity coach? Who's to say? We don't know for sure yet, but it's looking like that very well could be likely, as that's the avenue that he's pursuing. Now, for the other 2 standout players from Pittsburgh, Panda and GodRx, they have committed, saying that they are absolutely still going to be playing amateur circuit, sub, whatever, doesn't make a difference. They will 100% keep playing. We're not so sure about Saints. But then you look at some of the other bigger teams that are out there. When you take a look at things like G2 and FaZe, no one has really said anything specific about what's going to be occurring for them in their future careers, at least in the immediate, for those organizations, because let's be honest, the fact that these two organizations were in the game in the first place, they wanted to be that franchise team. This was pretty much the kind of closet goal of having the CWL be one long season, was that they were going to be interested in franchising full-on orgs. Well, when your two biggest franchises, well, two of your bigger franchises rather, don't get in, what do you do now? Especially for a roster like FaZe, where those 5 guys, or at least 4 of the 5 guys, are very much so in pretty heavy contracts, some of them making some pretty extreme amount of money a month. So what happens? Do these players even have a chance to go to substitute for another roster? All that interaction will have to occur between what the FaZe organization and those players are able to decide on their own. Of course, when roster locks open up just before Fort Worth, who's to say at this point that we won't see FaZe just buy out an organization and then just bring in all of their players that are on contract? Technically, I think that could still happen. That would be really shitty because they didn't qualify. None of those players qualified. So if we were to see them as a full roster because of how the organizational standards work, that would be an absolute shame. I don't know what the case is. I can't honestly tell you, but I wanted to kind of lay out some of the drama that's been going on, as it looks like most of the players that are on G2 and FaZe are still considering their options or still playing. None of them really having the same kind of emotional breakdowns that we saw in the Pittsburgh Knights. And then also notably, I wanted to just bring back one other player as well that has, of course, had a name in the scene for such a long time. Teddy Rex also had posted immediately after not qualifying that he was going to be completely done. And then a couple of days, hours, days later, he was saying that, never mind, I want to get back to the grind. I need to be better at respawn. He's still open for a spot as a sub, essentially framing himself as a one-trick SMG SND star, which you're going to need to do more of that in the league. But the fact of the matter is, it looks like he's going to grind out and try to find a way to get to the league as well, whether that be through a sub spot or by getting to the championships through an amateur circuit open team, which is the last thing I want to kind of leave you with, is what is the breakdown for these amateur circuits? Why are all these players losing their mind? What don't they have to play for in their minds? Well, there's a lot to play for still. The amateur circuit has a combined $375,000 in total prizing. $75,000 for each of the open events that will be occurring in the next couple of months, being at Fort Worth, then London, and then later in Anaheim, as well as the open bracket playoffs that will happen near the end of the season just before championships. And then on top of that, the top 16 teams from the amateur circuit will be invited to World Championships in a full 32 team standing, where you'll have the Pro League teams and these 16 amateur teams playing up against each other for the coveted World Championship. Mr. Adam App decided to very much so put people on notice, saying there is very much so a reason to keep playing in the open circuit, as you hear doggos in the background, probably. Beyond that, though, again, just one more thing just to kind of keep in mind with these events that are coming up. These open events, they are completely different tournaments for the amateur circuit as well as the Pro League. The Pro League will be running its own cup with just those 16 teams as a full tournament setting. No implications on the standings and no implications on what will happen for potentially championships. They are just standalone tournaments. Meanwhile, at that same event, the amateur or open teams will also be playing in a different tournament environment. So you'll be seeing the Alpha Bravo streams for how things went in Vegas for the teams that were Pro League teams, and you'll also have an open stream that will be going just covering the open division that's going on. So for those of you that are wondering as far as what happens from here for all these open teams, those are the places that they can play. Of course, money is on the line, but beyond that, also pro points, which helps in your seeding for all of these tournaments. So a lot of information there, but I kind of wanted to break down those teams and those players that are not currently in the Pro League and what their avenues look like. I'm going to be doing just a full-on power rankings of all the players that are currently most notably available, like a top 25 list with what their roles are, what strengths they bring, and who they might likely be looked at as far as who might need their help. Maybe we'll get some right. It'll be a little fun to do. And then beyond that, I want to give a quick shout out. If you're interested in the amateur circuit, the Collegiate Call of Duty League, the CCL, has just started up. Just on Tuesday, our first broadcast happened. I'll be shoutcasting some of the action with the team that's over there, and honestly, I have to put my stamp of approval on it. It looks like an absolutely great organization. Their production quality is fantastic. The organization is great. There are 32 teams participating from colleges all across the country for this first season. It'll last all the way until April, and you can catch those streams every Tuesday and Thursday starting at 6 o'clock Eastern time. So make sure you're tuning into that. I'll leave all the description and stuff in the links below for you to follow along if you're interested. Until next time, though, I've been Shift. Hope that you keep holding it down. Later. Bye-bye.